All right, so I am here with Jigsore, who was a former or is a former employee of DKOLDIES. And basically, what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask you some questions that I have, and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to the viewers who have sent me a bunch of different questions. First off, thank you, though, for taking your time to sit down with me and have this discussion. And thank you for dealing with the whole debacle that we just had, getting everything set up on here.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem, man.
really appreciate the patience. So, when did you start at DK Oldies? These are going to be my questions right off the bat, and then we'll turn it over to the viewers. But when did you start there?
So I was telling people I started in 2019, but I think it was actually like late 2018 because I know I bought something from them right before, and I looked at my order history and it said 2018. So I'm gonna go with 2018.
2018.
And
Gotcha.
I worked there until like uh, probably around like October or so of 2020, however long that
2020.
is.
Okay. All right. So year and a half, 2 years, something like
Yeah,
that, give or
something like
take.
that.
Okay. All right. And what was your reason for leaving?
I was having a baby, so I wanted to get a better job, and I also just couldn't stand the way that things were going there with how depressing it could be, and uh,
Sure.
my manager was kind of a douchebag, so I couldn't
Okay.
take it anymore. But it was mostly because I was having a child and I needed better pay and benefits and shit.
Right. Right. Totally understand that. It seems like it'd be a fun, or it should be a fun job. But yeah, I can totally understand having to move on to something a little bit better, especially being a dad and all of that.
Yeah.
Um, so, what was your specific job there while you were there for the year and a half, 2 years or so?
Specifically, I did shipping, so I was like cleaning games and systems. Sometimes I would test stuff, but I was a shipper.
Okay, and as a shipper, you have to do the cleaning and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious with how you would have to process these orders. Was everything? I mean, I guess you kind of just said that. When you're getting stuff to fill an order, it's not already cleaned or anything like that. You have to do all of that prior to packaging it up.
Yeah.
So when would it be? I know obviously the whole drama here is that they're advertising refurbished consoles. They're not actually refurbishing them, or that's what we're all saying, anyways, based on what we received. I would think that if you're refurbishing stuff, that would get done prior to the whole shipping process. Is that not how things were done there?
When things did get refurbished, then yeah, they would go to Dustin first. It was usually only if something was returned as broken. And so it would go to Dustin first, and he would fix whatever was wrong with it, and then they would send it back to us to be cleaned again.
So if it was returned as broken, does that mean that it had already gone out to the customers
Yeah,
previously in used condition instead of refurbished condition?
yeah,
Okay. All right. So it's kind of just like a backwards sort of way of doing it. I would think that, like I said, if it was refurbished, it would get refurbished, then maybe put on like a shelf, and like everything on that shelf is already ready to go. So all you would, in theory, have to do is just package that stuff up, bubble wrap it and all of
they
that.
kind of did that. Like I know that they had NESs where they would, because they had so many that they would just replace the 72 pin connectors and then put them on
Right.
a stack. But as far as like a lot of the other systems go, most of the time they wouldn't even be looked at first. They would just come into the store and be tested really quick, and then they would be put out on the floor for us to take them.
So they're tested prior to you getting them. So all you have to do then is just clean it.
Yeah,
And for the most part, then you're cleaning it externally, right? Just
yeah,
making so it just looks good, not necessarily opening it up.
yeah. We weren't even supposed to open it up unless there was like something rattling around inside, and we had to get that out. But we were told not to clean inside of it. We were told to pay like extra special attention to like controller ports and stuff too, because that's where everybody's going to look when you're going to use the system. So we
Right.
wanted to clean it up in a way that people were just going to assume the whole thing inside was clean as well.
Right. So it's kind of like just at first glance, they want it to look spotless. So nobody even thinks that, hey,
Yeah.
this stuff is gotcha. Okay. I mean, that's pretty telling of the situation there. So what was the work environment like at DK Oldies? You said that you were obviously having some issues maybe with your manager. That was one of your
Yeah.
reasons for leaving. But what was like the general sort of vibe in there?
I mean, it wasn't too bad. It could be um, a little bit overwhelming sometimes, kind of just depending on how my manager was feeling that day. But I mean, he was really the only one I had a problem with. So everybody else there was pretty laid back. I kind of thought that the other employees personally were like a little weird about new people.
Yeah,
Um, and everybody kind of treated me for the first couple of weeks like I was just going to leave anyway. They almost like they just expect people to leave right away, so they didn't
right.
really count on me staying and being a part of the
Yeah.
team at first. But other than that, it was not
Did
too
that
bad.
change over time, or was that always kind of in the air?
It changed a little bit over time, but I did always kind of feel like they felt that way
Right.
about me.
Understandable. Got it. So you were there during the pandemic in 2020, or was it kind of, did you leave prior to that?
I was there during that.
Did you see like, and this is just not necessarily related to DK Oldies, it's just a question I had because I know that video games in general just sort of like skyrocketed during the pandemic because everybody's at home, not with a whole lot to do.
Mhm.
Did you see like a big boom in business at that time?
I can't honestly remember if I did. I mean, I would assume so, but I don't really think I paid attention that much to that.
Right. Because I've come from more like the emulation side of stuff, and I know that like that at that time, Retro Pi was just like boom, and Raspberry Pis were flying off the shelf because people were just finding stuff to do to kind of kill time.
Well, I'm wondering if that's why we hired so many more people. Maybe we were getting a lot more business, and that's probably why he had all these extra people start working. Because originally, when I worked there, it was like a few people shipping, and then by the time I left, there were like a few different departments, and all these new people were there. So that's probably what happened. They probably
Yeah, that
got a
makes sense.
big boom.
Right, right, right. And how many people like? What was your? I guess I should first ask. What was like a typical shift? Like, was there a set amount of hours, or did it vary day to day?
I think I always worked like I think I always started at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and then we always worked until 4 because that's when the store would close. So
Okay,
nobody was able to work after that. But I know that in the summer, I think it was the summer of 2020, and then around Christmas time 2019, we did have to work more hours. So sometimes we would stay like after 4 o'clock, and like half the team would leave.
gotcha. Okay, and how many people were on staff like at any given time?
Um, well, let me count. We had a manager. There were like 3 or 4 shippers, including me, and it would be Dustin, Joey, and Ash. So there were probably like 7 or 8 people total that were at work.
Okay. All right. And that was, you guys had, were there certain days where other people would come in, or was that like pretty much the staff of the place there? You
That
know,
was pretty much it. Because when I
okay.
started there, there was only 3 other people shipping, and then there's Dustin in repairs. There was Ash doing cellular games, and the rest was like the shipping manager, Drew, and Scott. So
Okay.
there was only a few
Got,
people there.
gotcha. Makes sense. And it would be hard to count, but one thing that a lot of people asked was, how many orders did you see in like your typical day? Or maybe the better question, I guess, would be because you wouldn't be counting everybody's, what's on everybody's plate there. How many orders did you or were you expected to process in a day?
I feel like they gave me a number, and I don't remember how many we were expected to do. But I'm gonna say we were they expected us to be able to do at least 10 orders for like the first couple of weeks, and then after your training period's over, they probably expect you to be able to do anywhere from like 20 to 40 orders or something like that.
In a day?
I think so, because
Wow, that's
a lot of them are like games.
oh, that's
Like
true. So
most of what you get is
game,
like a
yeah,
Super Nintendo game or something like that. It doesn't take that long,
right. And
but
for that, you're pretty much, are you testing that, or has that already been tested when you go to process that order
it's
for
already
like
been tested.
game? Okay, so those are then, um, kind of pre-set up, so you just have to grab them, locate them, and throw them in a box or a padded envelope. Then,
Yeah.
so that's, I mean, if I was running the show, I would want it to be that way for the consoles too, because then you could, that 40 number would be feasible. If you have to go and let's say you had just consoles and you have to now clean all of those as well before you even get to the processing. I mean, 40 in a day would be just
Yeah,
totally
that would be
unrealistic.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that definitely gives us some insight as to, what would be going on there or what would be expected of you. This question, I think, was asked by a couple people. Do you think that DK Oldies is harming the retro collecting scene or retro gaming community with their prices?
Yeah, I've always thought that, because they're just, them raising their prices and also being a company that a lot of people know about and buy from. I feel like that causes everybody else to raise their prices to kind of
Yeah,
compete.
it sets the standard. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, if you go and you Google like any game or any console, they are like the first, to
Yeah.
pop up on Google. They pop up in multiple places too. So it's not something that I really gave much thought to. But yeah, it definitely seems like they would set the standard, and then anybody else, like even just an individual on eBay, could go and say, "All right, they're selling." Just throw something out there, Xbox 360 for like $200, and maybe they're selling them for more. I don't even know their prices on that, but anybody else could say, all right, I'll just undercut them by 20-40 bucks or so, when realistically a 360 you could probably get for like $50, I would think, on eBay.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they're definitely kind of price gouging that and causing the whole price to just raise across the board. um, do you find that we haven't really talked about Drew here, and Drew has become like this hot topic on YouTube the last couple of weeks? What was your relationship with Drew like? Did you deal with him on a regular basis, or was he somebody that you just kind of saw once in a while?
We just kind of saw him once in a while. Like, he only ever came in like maybe once or twice a week, and he would kind of just go straight into his office. And he only really came out of his office if he wanted to get coffee or to make a comment to somebody or something like that. So I really didn't talk to him all that much. Probably like 3 or 4 times.
Oh
Actually
wow.
talked to him face to face the whole time that I worked there.
So would he go through like a certain person, like a manager? Is that who he would like bust balls with, and then they would just kind of send the shit storm downward? Is that how that would kind of
Yeah,
work out?
he would either talk to Rob about, something to do with productivity or something, or he would talk to Joey about um like giving him ideas for videos, or usually it
Okay.
was like telling him that he's doing things wrong in the videos.
Right. Okay.
Um yeah, that's kind of it.
All right. So you didn't have too much interaction with him then. Do you? And it would be might be hard to answer this because you, like you said, you didn't interact with him too much. But did you feel like he was somebody that really cared about retro gaming in general, or was it just like a business sort of situation for him? Was he just in it for getting profit out of it, or was he a gamer or anything like that?
I know that he did play. He would tell us stories about playing video games back in the day. Like, you know, I remember him telling us the first time he experienced Dreamcast online. So he definitely played video games, but I always got the vibe that he was more of just in it for the money than
Right.
anything. Especially
Could
since
be.
I know that before that he was like, he'd talked to some lady about flipping, how she would flip pet supplies online or something. So that's what gave him the idea to start doing like a selling video games business.
Yeah, I had heard that from a bunch of people. I guess he had like a podcast at one point or something like that, or he did. Somebody told me he had a podcast, or he tried to have a
Yeah,
podcast that
he
was
was
mentioned on
trying
there.
to do one.
Oh, okay,
He tried to
gotcha.
do one with Anthony, and yeah, that's where he mentioned that. There's a whole video that's probably still up on their YouTube channel where he talks about how he got the idea for DK Oldies.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that story that you just said was a part of that. He got the idea from the lady that was like flipping cat food or something like that.
Yeah, it was like cat food or something.
Yeah, so that's interesting to kind of get that into the retro gaming world. But do you think that DK Oldies will ever change their ways or like restructure their, I guess, the way that they do things there? Or do you think that they're just going to continue to grind out the way that they are?
I feel like if it gets to a point where they start really losing a lot of customers, which I honestly, if things keep going the way they are going to lose customers. If Drew starts realizing that he's losing money, he'll probably try to change something. But on the other hand, I'm not so sure because I kind of feel like Drew is very narcissistic. I feel like he doesn't think that he's doing anything wrong, or that he can, or maybe he knows he's doing something wrong, but he thinks he can continue to get away with it anyway. So I really don't know about that. It could be either one. I'm thinking that from him being a businessman, he'll probably realize once people stop buying shit from him so much that that's why, because they definitely know about all of this drama.
Yeah, I mean, you type in DKOLDIES, obviously you find the shorts first, and I think that's what's protecting them in a lot of cases. I think the algorithm, from what people have told me, because, I mean, I'm logging into my account, so I'm going to see, like, what I viewed in the past, so it's going to be kind of skewed a little bit for me, but it seems like people see the short videos. I think that's what lures people in to place orders. And then once they've already placed their order and they've watched like a lot of that stuff, it seems like the algorithm then shows them, the review or videos or the unboxing videos, my stuff, Jacob R stuff, Review Tech USA stuff. And then they start thinking about it. And that's when they start, investigating what they received. And
Yeah, that actually happened to somebody. I can't remember what his name was, but they even picked his order to be filmed and everything, and he did an unboxing video and stuff. And then like a week later, he made another video saying that he went back on what he said, and he had watched all these videos where people were opening shit up and it was not clean. And I think he said he might have even opened up his system and found out it wasn't clean. So they definitely reel you in with these TikToks and shit that they do.
Yeah, for sure. I've gotten so many emails from people saying, like, I wish I saw your video before I placed an order, but because I saw your video, I opened it up and, we know what they found.
Yeah.
So it's fortunate for them, I guess. It keeps them at least getting the revenue in before people realize, but I don't think you get, obviously, any repeat business that way.
Yeah.
I think it's going to catch up with them, at least in that way. But I'll move on to the next one here. Do you know what happened with Sam? First off, I don't know who Sam is really, but this question popped up a whole hell of a lot, so he must be somebody pretty cool because so many people want to know what happened with Sam. He was apparently Joey's right-hand man for a while, then seemed to disappear. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I know that Sam, if you've ever watched any of their unboxings and you see like a dude with brown hair and glasses, that was Sam.
Okay.
I haven't seen him in their videos for a while, because they always pop up on my feed as well. But I think what people are probably talking about is that we all kind of thought for a while that the guy that Jacob R did an interview with was Sam. I remember a lot of people were talking about how, we hadn't seen him for a while, so it was probably him. When I talked to Jacob about it, and he's not going to tell me who it was no matter what, but he did tell me it wasn't Sam, so I actually have no idea. And I never worked with that guy anyway, so I really don't know anything about what happened.
Gotcha. Yeah, once you mentioned what he looked like, then it does resonate with me, and I remember that. But I didn't know him like by name or anything. But people have obviously watched a lot of these videos more so than I have even.
Yeah, some of these guys are like family to us now.
I believe it. I believe it. Another question, which I thought was interesting: does DKOLDIES buy modded retro game consoles, or are they specifically avoiding those? I know they don't buy like anything that is they wouldn't buy like a Raspberry Pi or anything like that. That's purely emulation, but definitely interesting to know if they bought anything modded. I know modding, original Xbox consoles is popular, and maybe that's something that you don't realize right off the bat.
No, as far as I know, they never did that. They tried to stay away from modding, like with anything involving mods.
Right.
And I know that with them being weird, like they were super anal about the fake games, so I don't think they would ever even try to put out like a modded system or anything like that.
Yeah, I would think that trying to resell that would be tough. Who'd probably want to do that like under the radar, especially.
Well, actually, Dustin does have an eBay account that he'll sell some things on that they can't sell in the store. So yeah, he might sell stuff like that. Now that I think of it,
okay.
Because I bought an Xbox One from his eBay store before.
Okay, interesting. Do they sell Xbox Ones? I never even thought to look. I mean, that's not really what I would consider retro, but I suppose some would. Do they? I've never even looked that up.
I know I saw one video where they had like the one guy guessing what was in a box, and he guessed it an Xbox One, and I kind of assumed that maybe they started selling them because of that. But I don't know. When I worked there, we didn't sell stuff like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it really lines up with what they do, but I guess every year the Xbox One becomes older and older, so
That's true.
eventually it's going to be retro, which is, I guess that's like how classic rock is now like Nirvana and like all these bands that once upon a
It's so
time
weird
probably
to hear, but
someone.
yeah.
It's crazy, right? Or like,
Because I still think of classic rock as Led Zeppelin, but you're right, it is pretty much like Nirvana
yeah,
and Pearl
Led
Jam and
Zeppelin,
stuff.
Beatles, the Stones, yeah, like even Motley Crue is like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy how things have evolved so much, and I just feel older and older now. But what it is. So do handhelds, and again, you might not know this, but do handhelds get opened and refurbished, or is that the same sort of wipe down sort of situation with what gets done prior to shipping out?
With my experience, I think handhelds got opened way less than consoles ever did.
Way less. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Like I have
That's
never
interesting.
opened a handheld, I don't think ever in my life. When I worked there, I don't think I ever opened one at all.
Wow.
Um, because
I'm
with
not familiar
systems,
with them, and I've never seen anybody, and there could be videos out there, but I've never seen any of the major YouTube channels cover anything about like Game Boy Color or anything like that. So that's interesting that that question came in because I never even gave handhelds a thought.
there are a few people I've seen that have made like reviews where they bought a handheld from them, but I
Hmm.
don't think I've ever seen anybody open it up. Um, because like with consoles, they would only ever even be opened in the first place if there was something broken in it. So handhelds like don't usually have that problem because they're a lot smaller and there's, you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah,
console
yeah,
will probably fucking have like a piece of plastic or some shit in there, but
one of the
Game Boys, I
tabs,
never
or yeah,
experienced that.
right, or like a Xbox 360, which is like all tabs all around the console. Those
Yeah,
would break and fall in and then rattle endlessly. So I get that. And I get why they want that to obviously not make a sound when people pick up a console because they'll start thinking, like, what's going on in here? And then
yeah.
find all the dust. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And I suppose with like a handheld, there's not a whole lot of open space in there. Everything's really tight. So something could be broken and you just wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
Um, I know like the tabs on like the battery pack for Game Boys would snap off, but you would realize that externally, and I'm sure they have tons of replacement parts for those too. So it's interesting that they don't open those up nearly as much. What about, and this is, I'm kind of like freestyling here, but now we're talking about Game Boy. What about the Game Boy cartridges or the games? Would they open those up? I know that there's batteries that they say that they replace in all of those. Is that true at all?
They do replace the batteries. I know that.
Okay.
I think they test them. You know, they test them all when they get in, so they'll like keep track of which ones won't hold a save and stuff like that. So they
Okay.
definitely do replace. Because I remember them bitching about how fucking expensive those batteries were.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at least they're doing that, so that's good. We'll give them, one check in this whole interview at least. Let me catch up here. So there's a lot of questions about Joey. I'm going to try to leave those for last, but we may be coming down home stretch here. Joey is the hot topic always. All right, I guess we're going to dive into Joey questions here, which
Well, he's right behind
personally,
me.
yeah, I see that. Personally, I could care less. In all honesty, I have nothing against Joey, but I don't find it as intriguing as most people. But hey, I'm going to ask people's questions here. So, was Joey the same way off camera as he is on camera?
No, he wasn't as enthusiastic and positive as he was on camera. When he was off camera, like somebody else had said, I think in the Jacob Ari interview, like he basically would just chain smoke Camel Crushes and kind of just complain about everything. Like they would take smoke breaks, I swear to God, like every 5 minutes. And they would
Really?
all just go out there. Yeah, we smoked a lot. And they would just go out front and all smoke cigarettes together. Like me, Heather, Dustin, Joey, Ash would all go out there and they would kind of just complain about Drew, and Joey would complain about, Drew told me that I did this thing wrong, but that was his idea and all this other shit. So he could be kind of miserable. Um, and I personally felt like he was kind of an arrogant person. Like it seemed almost like he didn't want to even talk to me. because I wasn't part of the team, kind of thing. Like you're not cool, so you can't sit with us, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
gotcha.
I don't know. Part of me always felt like the shit that Drew, put onto him was kind of what made him like that.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can understand how that would wear you down over time. But it's interesting you said that he's chain smoking outside because I was just thinking, I was going to say it when I kind of jumped into the question, but you would see in like videos of like anybody that's on camera, like, with like the napkins, so the makeup doesn't get on their shirt and they'd be like chain smoking, totally different than how they are on camera. So it's interesting that that seems to fit so perfectly for Joey.
Yeah, I was
So,
surprised when I started working there because I'd seen the videos and seen how he acted in the videos and stuff. And then when I started actually going out for smoke breaks with them, I was like, I didn't realize you were like that at all. It's all a
yeah,
character because Drew wants them to be as enthusiastic and happy and stuff as possible because it makes customers more comfortable
right,
and more likely to buy from you and stuff like that. And Joey is
right.
this character that everybody comes to know and love. It's almost like a mascot. So
It's funny, yeah. He is like a human mascot. I think I've said that in videos, which is why I mean, he could be the biggest asshole in the world. I don't think
yeah,
that it's relevant in any way, really. But um, I mean, he plays what he's supposed to play. He plays this like happy, sort of odd, nerdy, quirky sort of dude. But I think you're right. I think it kind of lets people take their guard down a little bit, and they're kind of rooting for him or willing to dig deeper into their wallet if they find him to be that way,
yeah,
if
and
that
I
makes
think
sense.
I think people think that Joey. I think the reason why everyone's so interested in it is because they think that Joey does this on purpose because he's getting something out of it. When really it's just that that's how Drew tells him to make the videos. Joey just does it for a paycheck because Joey's not involved in retro gaming or anything like that at all. He's literally just there for the paycheck and stuff. So I think a lot of people just think that he's purposely like lying. Drew, I mean, Joey just has no reason to scam anybody. So
Right,
I think that's why everybody is so obsessed with asking Joey questions and like finding out how he is off camera because it's all just an act.
right. And just the fact that he's in front of the camera but he doesn't have ownership as far as I know, right? He's
Yeah,
just a strict
no.
employee. It's odd that you would pick somebody to do that, but I think it makes sense if you're somebody that's, especially given the fact that you said that Drew is narcissistic. Generally, a narcissistic person wants that like camera time. They want to be up out there front and center, unless you're doing something shady, and then you
Hmm.
don't want to be associated with it. So you prop somebody else up to kind of take the brunt of the like right now, all of the negative press and all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's why he stopped doing those podcasts early on too, because they only had like 3 or 4 episodes before he just
That's what I
abandoned that
heard.
whole idea. I feel like that's why, because he knew what he was doing, and he didn't want to end up being the guy that everybody recognizes.
Right, makes sense. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't see. I mean, obviously at this point he has to know that people are onto him clearly.
Yeah,
But yeah, I would think that he would change his ways, but at the same time, like we've seen how they respond to certain videos with videos kind of like furthering, trying to defend themselves or like further their lies. But it's like you
yeah,
can just end the whole thing by refurbishing your consoles and doing what you say you're going to do. I
yeah,
think a lot of it would wash away. I mean, there's still going to be people that it leaves a bad taste in their mouth and they don't want to do business with them. But if like, hey, at this point in time, they, changed their ways, they started refurbishing consoles, I think then people would be, more likely to place orders with them again.
yeah.
But
Absolutely. Like if people came out with videos showing that they are keeping true to their word, then I'm sure a lot more people would start buying from them.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't, erase the past, but it certainly
Yeah,
shows some sort of accountability, which as of right now, I feel
yeah,
like they have none. They don't address anything head on. They block people or delete people from social media anytime anybody says anything remotely negative.
because we're jealous
So
of their success. That's why.
right, but none of us are in that business, so it's like
Exactly.
like I could, if they made $1 billion tomorrow, whatever, like good
Yeah,
for you, but do it the right way. That's my
yeah.
only issue
Just be
with it.
honest.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of working our way through that list of questions now. Um, I have a question that I'm interested in hearing your opinion of. I don't know if it's necessarily an answer, but with all this coverage of DK Oldies, and you don't have to say anything to make me happy because I'm one of the people that covered it. But with all this coverage, there's a lot of people that believe that negative press is still press, and it still keeps their name out there, fresh in people's minds, keeps them relevant. Do you think that the coverage on YouTube from content creators like me, Review Tech USA, Jacob R, is helping them in any way, or is it purely a negative impact on DK Oldies?
I think it does kind of help them. Just the fact that, and it's not just you guys, like you and Jacob R and Review Tech. There are all these much smaller YouTube
Oh
channels
yeah,
that are trying to do the same
absolutely.
thing.
Right.
So with people buying these overpriced systems from them, like DK doesn't necessarily care so much about whatever video you're going to make because they know the entire world isn't going to see it. I mean, they know that people have seen, like a lot of people have seen Rich's video and Jacob's video, but for the most part, you're spending like $100 to $300 on their shit, and a lot of people probably aren't going to see your video anyway. So,
True.
I think it's just giving them money, and like they're probably laughing about it because they're thinking these guys are trying to ruin our business, but yet they're giving us business by doing this. Because Jacob R has bought how many fucking consoles this year?
I think five or six.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think Rich just bought one, but I think he's kind of delayed with, um, you know, doing his unboxing and all
I
of
think
that.
he got
So
an N64. I think is what he
that's
got.
yeah. I think I just watched his update video where I forget the other guy's name. His editor is gonna
Jay.
he's gonna
Yeah, I
take over,
saw that.
gonna do that. So well wishes to his daughter. I know that they're going through it there. So I think that they're obviously in everybody's thoughts. Um, but yeah, it's I can understand that side of things. I think that obviously, and I'm one of the smaller YouTube channels. I will say that I don't want to put myself in the caliber of Jacob R and Review Tech USA. They've been around a long time, certainly have much more reach than I have. So I definitely get both sides to it. I think though that like for those that are seeing the review videos, I think it's souring people's take on DK Oldies, and I think it's definitely making them think, all right, do I want to? Let me put it this way: I think that people were willing to dig deeper into their pockets before, thinking that they were getting a refurbished console. Now that there's, at the very least, a question as to whether they're going to get a refurbished console, I think they're starting to think, okay, maybe I'll just go to eBay, pay a fifth of the price for your average console, and I'm likely going to get it in the same condition that I can paying DK Oldies, an arm and a leg. So I guess it goes both ways, though. Everybody's different in their interpretation of it. So
Well, that's true. And now that I think of it, I guess there are a lot more people that are seeing these review videos and not buying from them than there are people on YouTube that are buying from them. So they are
yeah,
probably losing a lot more customers than they are getting. That's a good point.
yeah, but it could also be too that like we talked about before, where the algorithm kind of picks up after
Yeah.
people have probably already. So maybe they're getting an initial batch of business from each person, but they're not getting that second. People aren't coming back. Like if I buy a PS2, I'm likely going to go back to the same place if I had a good experience, and then buy the games for it too, because
Yeah.
after a couple weeks, I need more games. So maybe they're not getting that repeat business where they would if the review videos weren't out there. But yeah, I mean, the algorithm kind of dictates what people see, when people see it, and the order that they see it in. So I guess that's a big factor to consider there. But I always figured like that whole like bad publicity benefiting you. I didn't think that worked so much for businesses. I think that it works for like individuals or like celebrities. Like if a rock star does
Yeah. That
something
makes more
negative,
sense.
yeah, like if Tommy Lee is going on a bender and whipping his willy out on Instagram, like we don't really care that much, or we're not like not investing in him because of it. We didn't think he wouldn't do something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
with a business, you probably want them to be on the up and up, especially if you're spending a couple $100s on a console. But that is pretty much everybody's questions here. I don't want to keep you any longer than I have already. So I do want to thank you, though, obviously, for sitting down and talking this through with me and giving us your story on your employment there, and all of that, and then answering everybody's questions. Really appreciate all of that today.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I really like your videos and the way that you like do things. So I was really excited to be able to talk to you about
Well,
this.
thank you. I appreciate that. I try to do things the best that I can, and I think it does help that I am one of the smaller YouTube channels, so I can interact with people and all of
Yeah,
that much easier. So I think that definitely can go a long way. But certainly appreciate the input there and the kind words that you shared. So
absolutely.
um, we'll have to do it again someday. Hopefully, we'll come back and they will have changed their ways and be refurbishing consoles, and we can talk about how they turned over a new leaf. But we'll see how
Yeah,
that plays out.
hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.